Okay, it is now 11 a.m. Pacific time. So good morning to those of you who are on the West Coast with us, but good afternoon or evening if you're tuning in from somewhere else. I want to welcome everyone to the Best of the Best webinar series brought to you by Novedge, the design software superstore. Again, thank you all for joining us today. We're really excited to not only present Vuuch, but also to have Alex and Chris going through it with us. Um, just a little background information on the presenters. Chris Williams has introduced CAD to the CAD and PLM world's technology before. He was actually the CEO of Seamage, which was acquired by Dassault, and he's also done various stints at the Parametric Technology Corps. And also, before Vuuch, Alex was responsible for marketing Revit from its launch all the way up into its being acquired by Autodesk. He also worked in collaborative systems and IBM and Lotus development as well. Now he's the chief propagandist for Vuuch. A little bit about how this webinar is going to work. The dynamic duo is going to be speaking for the next 45 minutes or so, and after that we're going to open it back up for a Q&A session. All the microphones are going to be on mute so as to kind of calm any sort of over-talking or anything like that. But feel free to shoot questions or comments into the questions box, and either Alex or Chris will be taking a look at that, maybe shooting some private answers if possible, and saving some of those for the Q&A session at the very end. A recording of this webinar will be up on Vimeo and YouTube once it's been processed, and so I'll give you a little bit more information on how to find that towards the end of the webinar. So with that little introduction, I'll turn it over to Alex and Chris, and yeah, get this party started. Here we go.
Thanks, Frank. Welcome, everyone. The voice you hear now is mine. It's Alex Niehaus, and I'm here with my colleague, Chris Williams.
Hello, everyone.
So now you can all see our intro slide. I'm going to very quickly level set you on Vuuch, and then we will get right into the demonstration. So Frank mentioned most of this, but as you know, Chris's photo that you saw before had a bad hairdo, so I didn't want to miss the opportunity to show you a slide of me with a bad hairdo. And you can see the agenda. We're going to be going very quickly into a demonstration. We hope that you will join us later for a Q&A. We often find this is the most exciting and interesting part of a webinar, and we love to get your questions and interact with you. So let me tell you a little bit about how you might be able to do that. You've already mastered GoToWebinar. If you want to see what we're going to present in more detail, particularly when Chris begins the demo, I recommend that you maximize the GoToWebinar window by pressing the blue button that you see here in the little tab, the control panel. As Frank mentioned, everyone's on mute, but you can enter questions into the question and answer box anytime. We find that people do that and enjoy using it as sort of stream of consciousness discussion with us, and we'll take all those questions, and we're here until all questions are answered and all comments have been discussed. So very quickly, I want to tell you about Vuuch. We have a very big, audacious goal. We want to transform the development process using social technology, which, as you know, is becoming increasingly important. We were founded about 2 years ago. We, as Frank was kind enough to point out, have been in the CAD industry, and others in our company have been in the CAD and PLM space for quite some time. Vuuch is now being used in a variety of different industries. Most recently, we have begun implementing Vuuch in an architectural engineering and construction customer, and we're based on the East Coast, just outside of Boston, Mass. So very quickly, before we get into the demonstration, let me just sort of tell you about Vuuch and the problem that we're trying to solve. Computers, as you know, any kind of digital technology has been very painful for interaction or teamwork because the systems that have been applied to this have been very rigid, and they require lots of pre-work, and they don't understand where people work already in their computer, like CAD tools and Microsoft Office environments. So what has happened is people have used the computer just as a way of storing lists, not really taking advantage of the capability it has to really direct work and bring people closer together. The one thing that has worked for many of us has been email, but email has become incredibly overwhelming, and I'm sure everyone who's participating in today's webinar gets too much of it and wishes that they could get less of it, and the email that they got would be more useful to them. So we think that Vuuch is a social technology. Vuuch as a social technology has a recipe that can change this, and the basic ingredients of that are that Vuuch knows what products are. That is, it knows what we want to accomplish at work. It lets people work where they already want to be, where they're already familiar with. Nothing has to change in the way they understand their work environment. And most importantly, because it is social technology, Vuuch links people to each other, not just for the purpose of making them friends, but it links them together through their work, through the work products. So we like to say that Vuuch is something new, what we call an enterprise social system for manufacturing that exists and plays very well with all of the technology that we're currently using to design, develop, and manufacture products. But it revolutionizes those product activities because it uses very basic concepts that everyone can understand. It actually encourages people to interact with each other in ways that they haven't before, and it is a natural extension of what we've already got. So very quickly, before Chris begins to show you Vuuch, I just wanted to give you some customer feedback, and of course, my favorite is here, as you can see. Whenever a product that is used in your daily work can be considered fun, I think you understand why we're very proud that we think we have delivered something that will make a difference in the way that your team and your company works together. Okay, Chris.
So let me take you through a couple of slides to introduce the concept of Vuuch, and then I'll enter into the demo. So there's a couple of key elements that are important in Vuuch, and the first one is what we call a Vuuch activity. And a Vuuch activity is similar to the things that you find on your typical project list or your issue list or your red, yellow, green report, whatever you call this list that you're using to manage the problems in design. So not only does it capture the status of the activity like the list does, it also captures the conversation that today is typically going on inside of your email system. Many times, I'm sure, your project managers have fired off emails saying, what's the status of this, because the actual list is out of date. So Vuuch combines these two things into what we call a Vuuch activity. The next element that you need to understand in Vuuch is Vuuch pages. And a Vuuch page is really just a web page. But each page has the Vuuch pages have types. So there's types that represent your parts. There's types that represent things like specifications and presentations, Vuuch pages for product. And you can even create your own custom Vuuch page classification. So you can do things like Vuuch page for an assembly station or an actual task on the assembly floor. And these pages represent the things that you care about. And what you'll see in a second here is how a page collects together people and activities. So let me explain how a Vuuch page collects this together. And I'm going to start back on the traditional task list that Vuuch replaces. So you can see on this list that there's a segment of things, 3 things in this case, that are being tracked for this rear panel part. And what you'll see me do in the demo is you'll see me open up the CAD part, and I'll Vuuch that CAD part. So from within the CAD system, I'll start tracking items on this part. And what happens is a web page is created that now represents that part. And that web page collects together all of the activities, the status, the issues, the discussions, and the people involved in that for that specific part file. And you can do this for any number of elements that are in your product. Like I said, the product itself, an assembly task, the parts, an assembly. And you'll see in the demo that these pages represent different elements that you care about and bring the people together. So just in summary, Vuuch pages and Vuuch activities, those are the 2 things that you'll see me working with in the demo, and a little bit about the demo story now. So in the demo, what I'll do is I'll act as 2 people. I'll act as a project manager Pam, That's where I'm going to start. I'm going to start in Outlook, and she's also going to work on the web. And then I'll finish the demo working as Designer Dave. Designer Dave will start his day on the web using the Vuuch portal, and then I'll actually go and do some work in a CAD system. And for the demo, I'm going to use Solidworks. So I just need to grab control of the screen. Okay. So here I am. I'm in Outlook. I'm acting as Project Manager Pam. Oh, I'm sorry. I just need to reboot Outlook. So I'm in Outlook, and I'm acting as Project Manager Pam. And you can see there's an email going on here that Pam is discussing with marketing about some features in the product. And she's gone back and forth with the marketing person on a specific feature, and the demo product that we're using is a GPS redesign. So before Vuuch, what would she do? She might, forward this email off to different engineers and ask them to do different work or stop work. She might reply back to people. She might send an email off to another engineer asking them to mark up the project status list because she wants to track this item. But with Vuuch, all she does is she comes over here, and this email is about this product, this GPS redesign. And she now wants to start tracking this item. So rather than dragging the email into a folder over here in Outlook, she'll drag that email onto a specific page inside the Vuuch product structure here. And I'm going to put some additional stuff up here. Follow up on that. So it's going to change the title. I'm going to track this as a red issue that needs to be resolved. Basically, marketing is saying that they're thinking about pulling a specific feature out of the product. And you can see that that's now being tracked as an issue on the electronics in this product structure. I'm now, as Pam, going to look at what's going on across the product structure. I'm going to look here at the main board, look at what's going on the battery. I'm going to see that this power requirement work that's going on. I want to put this on hold. So I'm going to post a comment on that thread, and that's a Vuuch activity that I've just commented on and put it hold. And I don't have to worry about who's been copied in on that because Vuuch knows the people involved, and Vuuch has messaged that Pam has put this on hold. I'm also going to come back up here, and I'm just going to go and knock a couple of these other ones on hold. And again, Vuuch knows the people who have become interactive with that activity, and Vuuch is telling those people that Pam has now put this item on hold. And she doesn't have to now fire off additional mails, chase people around to see what's going on, just simply doing this work right here, working with Vuuch inside of this Outlook panel. She stayed right where she spends most of her day, and she's dealt with the project tasks. Now, I'm going to also, as Pam, I'm going to go over to the web, and I'm going to work on some other stuff that I have to do in Vuuch. So she's going to log in at the web portal. She's going to navigate down to the product page for this redesign. And using Vuuch, she can get an idea of what's going on at any point in the design across the product structure. So she can see she's going to roll up what's going on across all the electronics. There are all those items that she put on hold. She could roll up what's going on for her across the entire product. And you'll notice that as I pick in the structure, we show her the people that she's related to based on where she's selected in the structure. So she can see that herself, purchasing, and marketing are working with respect to the battery. Now, she now wants to go and start some more work. So how does she do that? Well, she wants the CAD designer to do something, or the mechanical design team to start some work. So she's going to go create a new activity for the designer that says to get the CAD files together and bring in the initial issues that they know about for these parts. She's going to submit that, and you'll see that this list for the mechanicals now will have that new item added to it. So Pam has done what she needs to do, so she's going to log out. And I'll now leave the persona of Pam, and I'll become the designer. So the designer likes to log in at the web portal every day because the home page in Vuuch tells him kind of what's changed and what's going on with respect to the deliverables for the projects that he's working on. So we can see here, we're not actually showing him every single message and every single finite change that's going on. We're just rolling it up with respect to the pages that are changing. So in this case, he can see that there's something going on with the mechanicals. There's something going on at the top of this redesigned product. He's got something he's got to do on this Excel file. So if he now navigates into the actual page, we'll show him the activities for that item. So he can see here that he has to do something with the CAD files. You can see his project manager has assigned it. He can actually look at this. Oh, he wants me to get the CAD files together. So he can reply from here. He could reply from within Outlook like Pam did. I'm going to go back up. Now that I know what I need to go do, here at the mechanicals lever, I'm also going to kind of work my way up the product structure to see what's going on, because I can see this mechanicals is in this redesign project. So I can look across the top of the product here, this redesign, and I can see all the things that I am involved with and the ones that I haven't actually dealt with. So I can see there's a number of things here that I need to kind of get up to speed on with respect to the overall project. But what I was asked to do by Pam is to start that CAD work. Now, in a separate meeting, my team and I had started to discuss some issues that we're going to have on the front bezel. We started to discuss some issues that we were going to have on the rear panel, and we've captured that stuff in Excel. Of course, we could capture that in Vuuch directly, but I want to show you in the demo how you don't always have to start in Vuuch. So Pam drag and dropped an email and converted that email into a Vuuch activity. And what we're going to do now with designer Dave is going to take this Excel-based stuff and convert that into Vuuch. So what's cool about that is we're not forcing a complete change of practice, and that means you can also start using Vuuch in the middle of a project. So I'm going to import all this stuff from Excel. So I just have to go and browse out to that file. And if you remember, that Excel file had columns in it. So there's headers for these things. So there's a header called components, and you can see that I ultimately have 2 components listed. So what we have to do is just map this together. So I'm going to say, for every Vuuch page, create a page for every component. I'm going to bring in the priority because I had that priority. We've already mapped together some of this other stuff based on the column heading. And I'll just hit submit. And what will happen is 2 Vuuch pages will be created, one for each of the components, and a number of activities will be created across those pages. Now, at the same time, if I go and look at, say, this front bezel page that we just created, I can see the people who are participants on it. Now, Vuuch has actually sent a message to these people saying that designer Dave, has created this Vuuch page, has invited them to the page, has assigned them to work on these items, and only the items that they're actually participating on. Because if I were to go look at this, I could actually see what people are working on. So for instance, I can see manufacturing Mike is only involved on 2 of these. I can show which 2. These are the 2. Pete is involved on 3 of them. So I can go and see which ones Peter's involved on. So we have a very good understanding of what's going on. And what you see here is the designer is in bold, and these other 3 people are not in bold. That tells me how they're actually connected. It tells me that manufacturing Mike and purchasing Pete and project manager Pam are connected to this page through an activity. So when that activity goes away, they'll actually be removed from this kind of mini team that's working on this. If I want to, I could actually permanently invite somebody as well. So it's kind of like friending them on the page. So I'm going to make Pam a friend on this page, which means she's now following everything that's going on for this front bezel. So the two pages I created, front bezel and rear panel, really belong in the product structure for this GPS. So I'm going to go into the GPS product, and I'm going to add those two pages. So I'm going to go find those pages and add them to the structure. And, you know, these really should be down in mechanical, so I'm going to restructure this. And then I'll look at what I'm doing across all the mechanical components. So here's all the things now that I've been involved with across the mechanical components. So at this point, I'm going to actually check this off as done, because I'm just about to finish this work that Pam has asked me to do. So I'm going to mark that as done. Pam will be told. And I'm going to jump over to Solidworks. Now, those two pages that we created that I see here now in Solidworks, front panel, rear panel, really are about specific components in my Solidworks model. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this up, and this works now with a number of CAD systems, Inventor, AutoCAD, SpaceClaim, SolidWorks, ProEngineer. We're working on others. And all this same functionality works with the Microsoft tools as well. So what I really want is I actually want all of the front panel activities that are going on to be connected to this part. So all I have to do is simply say, you know what, make a connection for me. And now what happens is that generic Vuuch page has been converted into a SolidWorks part page. So the page knows that, hey, I'm actually representing that SolidWorks part. So I'm tracking now all the things that are going on and who's involved with the stuff that's going on for that actual SolidWorks part. So now I can start doing some work. Well, I've already done this, this item here. I've gotten the artwork from Art, and I need to go work on some of this other stuff. So I have to add a logo pocket down here in the logo area. But I've actually had some feedback from marketing and industrial design that doesn't actually match. So I'm going to actually log in kind of where I am with this work. And I'm going to correct my engineering spelling. And I can edit this, item that I've attached. So we don't force in Vuuch for you to use any specific markup tool, so we're just using whatever's on my desktop. I happen to actually use Paint, so I'm going to mark up this the way that two people want it. Exit out of that. And what you'll see is these updates are actually happening right here. And of course I can put in as many images as I want, and these images are now being carried back to the rest of the team that's involved in that activity. I also have a requirement to change a dimension in the model for the screen opening. So I'm going to go find that feature. And make that change. And I can see that that creates kind of an interesting situation. So I'm not quite sure where that requirement is coming from, but I'm going to capture kind of what's happened with this model. Let the rest of the team come back to me on this. And when they do, I will ultimately come and finish this work. So I can already see that people are replying back to me on this logo pocket. So I can see, I'm going to go here, I can see my managers replied back, do it the way that Mark ID wants, so I'll finish that off later. But let me jump back into the assembly. And open up a different part. So I have this rear panel part. that we also created a Vuuch page for. So if I go find that, I'll make the connection like we did the last time. Vuuch knows that the part name and the page name are out of sync, so I'll tell it to synchronize those. And I now can do and deal with only the activities for this part. Now, I was just out on the floor and I noticed that some prototypes that were coming in, they all have a crack in this corner. So I'm going to capture this issue. I don't know, it's not my responsibility to necessarily fix it at this point, but I'm going to capture it so the team knows that there's a problem. I'm going to capture this information, again, adding as many markups as I need to describe the situation. I can, of course, title these so I can refer to them in the text. But you can see here what I've done is I said it's an issue, it's red. I'm going to just bring my project manager into it, maybe the purchasing person into it. And so what I've done is I've added an item to this list. Now, what's really exciting about this item is that it's actually related to the geometry. Let me show you that. So if I click on this drawing item or this increased ventilation item, you see nothing is selected in the model. But if I click on this crack item that I just created, it's actually connected to the actual model. You can see the note there showing where I selected. So not only is it related to the file, it's actually related to selections in the file. At the same time, I don't have to create them that way, so that this increased ventilation is going to affect that surface. I'm going to make a connection between that item and the surface. So now if you watch, I select back and forth, what's going to happen is that these items are selecting on the actual screen. So you can see it's very contextualized to what's going on. So again, let me open up this increased ventilation item. And I have to change the whole pattern on this. I'm going to capture this. Actually, I want to capture that without the blue. So I'll just remove that one, edit this one, go through the same markup process that I did before. So I'm going to take this out, and I'm going to replace it with really a circular section here. So the holes will now be in this area. But what I'm not actually sure about is the flow analysis. So I'm going to, if I have to do that, it's just going to actually create a fair bit of work for me. So I want to know about that. And I actually start to track a due date on this. I want to know about this answer by next Thursday. And I'm actually going to assign it to my project manager. So my project manager now has a task to get back to me on this relative to redoing the flow, by Thursday, so a couple of days from now. Let me now go and Vuuch an actual Solidworks file from within Solidworks. You saw me create generic pages using that import functionality. You saw me connect those to an actual CAD file. Let me open up a different CAD file. I'm going to open up this button here. And I'm going to show you how easy it is to Vuuch something from within the CAD session. So I have to do some work on this, and I'm going to start tracking activities for it. So I'm going to track a question on this. Which is really just a question that I want to track as a task, because if we are going to do a FEMA on this, it'll ultimately become a task for me to complete. So you notice I don't actually have to say which part it is and what part number or any of that, because this question is actually connected already to the part. Just simply say, are we going to do a FEMA on this? The rest of the information is actually there based on what it's connected to. So the simple act of just starting to track something, which is very similar to just sending an email to somebody about it, actually what has happened is a Vuuch page is now created for this item. If I actually wanted to log back into Vuuch on the web portal, you would actually see now a page, a SolidWorks page, for this button tracking this one item on it. Let me jump over and actually do that so you get the idea. So here's that button page. I'm looking at, here I am as the designer, and I'm looking at all my Vuuch pages right now that I'm acting on. And here are the people I'm involved with across all those pages. So I could actually sort this, let's say, for SolidWorks. And those are the people that I'm working on for SolidWorks. If I look at this button page, this is the people that I'm working on with the button page. So if I create a new activity, let's say from here, I know that we have to do a vendor validation. It's an outstanding task. I'm not going to put any post in it. It's just an activity. I want to track the fact that we've got to get this done. I'm going to bring in the project manager and purchasing on it, and I'm just going to hit submit. So I'm actually building the task list now from the web, and we have this new vendor validation item. Doesn't have a due date on it, but it is a task. It's not really assigned to us. I own it at this point. I could even further change this, and let's say, you know, because we're not really ready to do this, I'm going to actually put this item on hold. So it's on the list, but we're holding doing it. Now watch what happens when I jump over to SolidWorks. Not only do I see that somebody's replying to this FEMA one, I see that this new vendor validation item is showing up. So I'm going to look at what's going on with this FEMA. I think I'm probably getting some response back from the team. Yeah, so my manager wants to do this for next week, so I'm actually going to assign a due date of next Tuesday for this. Put in my my post on this thread, and go create another item. I've been talking to marketing. Marketing wants this surface to be soft. So we'll miss standard cost by probably a factor of 4, and the current vendor cannot insert mold. So that creates a couple of problems for us. So I'm going to track this as an issue, high priority issue. I'm going to bring my marketing guy, my project manager into this. And hit submit. So again, the list is growing for this item. And you know, if my manager didn't want to actually perform that soft service, she could actually put that on hold and put a comment in. But just like the button, you remember that how things. I'm sorry, just like that back panel, you can see that that's actually related to that surface. So there's a lot of intelligence in a Vuuch activity. So let me jump back to the web. And I'm going to go back to that product structure and show you what's happened to that, that product structure. So I'm going to look here for the product that I'm working on, this GPS redesign product. I'm going to go to the page for that and check out the product structure. So you remember we brought those generic Vuuch pages into the mechanical section. Well, look what's happened. Those pages have actually now modified to reflect the fact that they represent a SolidWorks part. Well, I do need to actually add a new page, which is that button page to the structure. So I'm going to pull that, that item in, and I'm going to bring that button down underneath the mechanicals. And I'm going to roll up what's going on for me across the mechanicals. So there's all those items. This one, well, now it's really done, so I'm actually going to archive it off the list. So shorten up my list. Wait for my web connection. And then I'm going to look at what's going on for me across the entire product. And again, you'll see Vuuch is rolling up. You know, who am I connected to? What are my social connections across the extended team with respect to this GPS project or this GPS redesign product versus what are my social connections with just this button? And I'm actually connected to a lot of people through this button. And I can see, you know, the soft surface item, my manager, I just mouse over there, I can see that, yeah, we are going to put this on hold. We're not going to actually do this. So I'm going to actually just go through and archive a couple of these, or just archive that one. And you'll notice that I believe the list will change because I think the marketing person is only involved in that one item. Yep. So the marketing person now is no longer interacting as part of the team. So another thing that's very cool about Vuuch is you notice I never dealt with access control. I never dealt with team definitions. You know, kind of the team is very, very dynamic based on what's going on with each element of the product that we're working on. So that's Vuuch in, I think, about 22 minutes or so.
Yeah.
I'm going to actually turn the screen back to Alex, and I look forward to taking you know, a bunch of questions.
Great, Chris. Thanks so much. I'm just going to take back the screen here.
Yeah, I see you.
Great. So we'd like to invite everyone to try Vuuch today. We think that it's easy enough for you to get started. You can just visit vuuch.me to register for a trial account, and then we'll contact you and help you get set up. And I think you'll find that it really is just that easy. Our website is obviously www.vuuch.com, and our blog is at blog.vuuch.com. So just the two basic ideas we like to repeat that you need. It's all you need to understand the Vuuch social system. Is that there are pages that represent the items that you and your teammates care about. On each page there are a variety of items, tasks, issues, discussions, and so on, which we call Vuuch activities. People can be invited to participate in the page or an activity or both, and you can always see who's been involved or who's going to be involved in the people pane, which is, as Chris was pointing out, one of the sort of hidden gems of the social technology that Vuuch is, because it's very dynamic, and inviting people is the way to get them to participate in the system, and there's no other necessary work. So with that, I want to thank you for your time and your attention. What I'd like to do now is go into the Q&A. I'd like to go into the Q&A portion of the webinar. We have a couple of questions already queued up, so I'm going to start with those. But I'd also like to invite you to go ahead and enter any questions that you might have, or comments, or items that we need to clarify by entering them in the question section of the GoToWebinar interface. I sound a little confused because I'm moving windows around on my desktop. So with that, let me just...
there you go, multitasking.
Yeah, I'm multitasking, but as you can tell, I need that turbo boost that comes with the latest Intel chip so that I can talk and move my mouse at the same time. And yes, I was in my teens before I could walk and chew bubble gum at the same time, as they like to say. Okay, Chris, so the way this works is that you'll type in your questions, and I'll pose them to Chris. And any comments you have, and we'll just go back and forth like this until there are no more questions. So the first question we have for you today, Chris, is from an attendee who asks, can CAD be used as a PDM system for CAD drawings and documents? What a great question that is.
Can Vuuch be used?
Yeah, can Vuuch be used?
So it's, you know, so one of the things that is interesting about Vuuch is we actually don't manage the file. So we're managing...
Which is deliberate, by the way.
Yeah, it
very
is deliberate. We don't force you to check the file into Vuuch. Matter of fact, we don't care how or if you manage the file. So we're not really a file management solution. We're much more managing the work related around each one of those deliverables. Now, I will tell you that probably 80 or 90% of our customer base has asked us to provide a functionality to actually check the file in. So that's something that we're talking about with users. Our expectation is that we would do it very differently than what's been done in traditional data management tools. That said, also, there are cases where we've actually integrated Vuuch with an existing PDM system. So again, because we don't force you to control the file in any specific way, the other thing that's great about Vuuch is you can actually integrate it or Vuuch enable the PDM system that you actually have in place. Whether that's something as simple as a shared file system, or whether it's something as complicated as
a homegrown PLM system.
A PLM system.
Yeah. If I could add to that, that's such a great question. I want to thank the attendee for posing it because it gets at something I think is unique and different about Vuuch, and that is that we have one of the reasons that computers have been hard to use for team interaction is that they have focused on files. And what Vuuch does is Vuuch focuses on the work. Chris calls it the work around the file, but the file is just part of that.
All that unstructured stuff.
All that unstructured stuff. And Vuuch includes, and Vuuch loves files because we have this technology called fingerprinting that Chris can talk a little bit more about. But at the end of the day, Vuuch just represents the file as part of the overall interaction.
Yeah.
And so that is, it's a very natural thing for many people to say, well, what about the files? But we believe that any system, any collaboration system, which is a word we don't use to apply to Vuuch, that was focused on files ultimately fails because being focused on the files is the wrong way to improve
we think it's
interaction.
Yeah, it's wrong to force an explicit approach to file management. It's good to manage files, but it's bad to force it to happen in an unnatural point or when the users don't want it. So we allow it to occur when and how you actually want it. And if you are interested in talking to us about that, it is a live project, and it's something that we will probably deliver in the near term versus the long term.
Right, but it is optional.
Yep.
Right, along the lines.
Completely
right, never forcing anyone.
Because not every Vuuch page actually represents a file.
Correct. As everyone in the demo saw, there are generic pages which can represent anything, or you saw some custom pages too that can represent something very specific, which is the next question I'd like to ask you, Chris, because I think it's what this attendee wanted to know. This attendee asks, can you create a template for a project that then sets up the standard activities for a product?
Yeah, so the most simple way to do that, and the way that most people are doing it today in Vuuch, is to create an Excel file, and in that Excel file you list all those standard things. So it could just be an Excel file of activities that you actually import to a specific Vuuch page, or it could be very similar to an Excel file like I worked with, where you actually templatize the structure of the project as well as the activities that are there. And what that does is it gives you a way that's very natural to the way you guys think today, which is Excel. It gives you a way to very quickly kind of organize your thoughts and then get them into Vuuch. And then we will ultimately actually allow, we don't have it today in the product, but we'll ultimately allow templates to occur inside of Vuuch as well.
We have kind of a follow-up from the attendee who asked about PDM. I guess he's or she is interested in the optional data management, because this person asks, in what time frame might we be doing that?
So it's actually a project that we are discussing with people at this point in time. We have a number of people who have asked us to add that functionality. So we're really kind of building requirements. Actually, everything in Vuuch that you've seen and haven't seen has been built in cooperation with customers, and that's exactly how we're treating this PDM functionality. We're building requirements right now with customers to understand exactly what and how they want it to work. So if you're interested in that, please please
drop us a line
after the webinar.
Here's a question even I can handle. An attendee asks, does it work in the Mac environment? The answer is yes. We have the web portal, which you see is fast and easy to use, and also makes a lot of sort of fundamental sense because people are used to seeing pages. Here, these pages represent something or some concept you care about. So we definitely support the Mac environment.
Through the browser.
Through the browser. And we have an API, an open API that we believe is easy enough for someone to implement so that if we had the demand, frankly, we could implement it in Office for Mac pretty easily. So if that's something you're interested in, once again, just let us know and we could get cracking on it. Chris, how long did it take to do our recent plugin? We've got a new plugin, and I think...
Yeah, so we'll be, well, I guess I can't announce it because I'd be pre-announcing it, but we just built a plugin for a new CAD system, and we'll announce it here shortly. But it was about complete lapse time, about 2 weeks of time, and a number of hours, a lot less than that. So building add-ins for Vuuch is actually a very straightforward thing. You just need to understand the target application. And then, as Alex mentioned, our integration APIs are completely open for people to use to Vuuch enable any tool, any environment, any solution that they want.
So we have a couple follow-up questions on that, which I'll get to in a sec, but I guess now would be a good time to answer another question we've gotten, which is, what other CAD systems do we support?
So you saw me demo in Solidworks, so clearly we support Solidworks, but we support a number of CAD systems, AutoCAD, Inventor, ProEngineer. We're about to announce another CAD system, and we're working on an additional CAD system as well. So we're working on SolidWorks and CATIA V5 at this point.
Oh, my mind just went blank. Completely blank. I guess it's a senior moment here. Let me get back to
email integration?
Yes, the email question. Yes, so that's what I was looking at. So this person, another person followed up on the Mac question and said it's good that we support via the browser. Then how is mail integrated is the question. And the answer is through whatever mail client you might be using, whether it's webmail or one of the native Mac clients.
Well, and what you didn't see me do in the demo is you as a Vuuch user get to decide whether Vuuch communicates to you in email. So as a user, you can say, you know what, I want to not only see the stuff that's going on in my Vuuch panel, I also want to receive email messages about what's going on. So if you do opt to get email messages, and you want to add a reply to one of the Vuuch activities, you actually just reply to that email that Vuuch sent you. Your reply is stripped off and put in the appropriate thread. So, for instance, we use Vuuch here in the creation of Vuuch, and I opt into the email so that if I'm on the road, I can just get my email messages about what's going on with Vuuch and reply to it right from that email client. So, at that point, it actually doesn't matter what client you're using. If you want the add-in like I had in the add-in for Outlook, that would be a different story, and we haven't built an add-in yet for a typical Mac client yet.
Okay. Let me ask or remind folks once again to enter any questions in the GoToWebinar question panel, and we'll get to them. We have a couple more, but I want to make sure you get the opportunity to ask your question.
Can I take this time tracking question, Alex?
Sure, Chris. Go ahead.
Somebody's asking about time tracking. So you saw me actually using due dates on the items. So not every item has to have a due date, but you're actually, if you were interested in, you can actually track a due date for an item, and clearly we know whether it's overdue or when it's due. But it's another element that we're working on with a couple of customers where they want to track how much time is being put into each item. So we track a very complete history of all the responses and what's going on with an item, and we're discussing requirements for how would people log time to each item. And again, it wouldn't be forced; it would be completely flexible to which items do you want to track time on, and to what extent do you want to track them. So again, that's another discussion that we have going on with customers.
So here's an interesting question for you, Chris. You use the term representation. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about what that means? I think the person wants to know about fingerprinting and so on.
So representation, so this is the idea that pages have kind of a class. So, you saw me work with it when I imported stuff and I created generic pages. That's kind of the basic page type in Vuuch. You then saw me convert that page inside SolidWorks to a SolidWorks part-specific page. So this is the idea that the page represents an item. Initially, those pages represented just some generic placeholder that I had in my product structure, and I knew what they represented by the name of the page. But I then converted those to a SolidWorks part, so now they represent an actual SolidWorks part. And no matter where that part shows up, if the person is a Vuuch user and the person is connected to the activities that are related to that part, we can, or Vuuch can, actually show that person all the activities that are going on with it right through the part file itself. So Alex mentioned the fingerprint. That's how we actually track each of these files that are out there. So Vuuch is kind of a little bit like a CSI lab where we generate a fingerprint for each file, so no matter where it shows up, we can connect it back to the page that represents it. The same idea would happen for database items. So let's say you Vuuch enabled your CRM system, you could actually then create Vuuch pages, let's say for customer complaints, or maybe you create pages that don't actually have a file representation. So the product page that I was working on, it was classified as a product page so that it knows that there's a structure underneath it. It knows that it represents a product. It has a name. It has a set of components that make it up. And you now can actually search for things based on the page type that you're looking for. So if you're looking for a part file, you're looking for a SolidWorks file or a Word document, you see all this stuff grouped together inside of Vuuch.
Okay, so we've got a couple more questions, and I want to encourage people to continue entering them. Chris, another attendee asks, does the system work over multiple sites, and would that slow it down? It's kind of an architecture question.
Absolutely. So it's probably one of the there's two really big driving forces in the people who are buying Vuuch. One of them is the fact that their teams are somewhat distributed. Not necessarily always distributed that far, could be just the opposite ends of the building. And it doesn't have any performance impact over Vuuch whatsoever on the number of people who are on it or how far apart they are. And so distance is a huge factor in what's driving people to procure and utilize Vuuch.
I think we should explicitly say that the system is SaaS.
Yes, yes.
And so that means that we handle the, you sit back and leave the driving, at least in infrastructure, to us. And so it is very easy to implement for you because it's literally just going to vuuch.me and signing up, and we handle all of the capacity and configuration issues. So you really do get ROI from Vuuch very quickly because you don't have to go through an installation or customization period. And I know that will lead, I'm going to anticipate a question, which is, because you're SaaS, tell us a little bit about security.
So the general reaction has been that Vuuch is more secure than the way people are doing it. We follow all the appropriate security protocols and monitor the service. But because Vuuch is a web service, we actually provide customers a lot of analytics about who's actually connecting to the site, where they're connecting from. So we have a much richer view of what's going on than people do on top of email. As well, we can actually report on all of that. So I could take any one of those Vuuch activities and export it into a PDF file and show a complete history, or what I really like to think of as a complete design intent of what went in to a part, how did an issue get resolved, who was involved with it, did it start out as a discussion and then turn into an issue and then become a task for somebody. So we actually capture all that real intent that went into the actual design of the product. And I would argue that is the true intellectual property of the actual product.
It looks like we have one more question, and unless people want to enter any more questions, so please do, by the way. We're happy to take more questions, but I have one more for you, Chris. And this attendee wants to know, is Vuuch just for discrete manufacturing or discrete manufactured products?
So it is our target markets, but Vuuch actually can be applied to any number of things. What's really kind of the core of Vuuch is the notion that there is a product. So we have one customer today using it for software. So their product is not a washer or dryer. Their product is actually a software product. So they're using Vuuch to track customer requirements and bugs and enhancements for that actual software product. We have another customer that actually started with us yesterday that is building, they actually build homes. So their product is a house.
They manufacture homes.
No, they manufacture homes, yeah, because they're not a house built kind of at the site. They're a house built in a factory and then shipped to a site. And although it's very hard to believe, they actually unfold the house and it's completely done in a couple of days. So their product is actually a house that is shipped to somebody. So the only core that really is required, I think, to use Vuuch or to really make Vuuch valuable to you is that you have some concept of a product. We have another prospect that is looking at applying Vuuch to financial service-based products, so kind of IRAs and whatnot. So really the core fundamental is that there's a product, there's people involved, there's issues that have to be resolved, structuring it makes sense. That's what you need for Vuuch.
Yeah, and social technology is the right answer. Okay, so with that, it looks like we've answered everyone's questions. Chris, I want to thank you for a great demo and for being so informative in the Q&A. And on behalf of Vuuch, I'd like to thank everyone who attended today, and we hope that you'll start Vuuching your projects and your products soon. Frank, do you want to say anything?
Yeah. Well, first I want to thank everyone for coming out to another edition of Novedge's Best of the Best webinar series. I want to thank both of you guys for an awesome presentation. I mean, it was really informative, Chris. That demo was very in-depth, and it was really interesting, actually. But I wanted to just real quick switch over here real fast. But yeah, so again, this has been another episode of the Best and the Best webinar series. It's brought to you by Novedge, and I just want to talk about Novedge for a second. We're the leading online design software superstore. We've got over 3,000 products, and they're always at the best prices. Our friendly and knowledgeable staff is literally only a phone call away to answer all the questions that you have. Much like Alex and Chris, our staff here has a long history in the CAD industry, creating CAD software as well. So we're kind of the premium place to get anything CAD related that you would need, and I think I already mentioned this, including Vuuch. And it's really easy to get over to. It's just novedge.com. You can see it on your screen there. If you have any questions or comments about this webinar, feel free to shoot me an email. You can see my email address on the screen right there. It's frank@novedge.com. And to stay up to date on future webinars, you can go to novedge.com/webinar series and kind of get all the info on what's coming up. The next webinar in the series is actually going to be an introduction to T-Splines version 3, and that's going to be on December 15th, same time. Yeah, it's gonna. And if you wanted to get more information on that, like I said, you can just shoot over to that website. And that's about it. I want to thank everyone again. Thanks, Alex and Chris, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Frank.
All right, thanks, guys.
Bye.